This is certainly something none of us was expecting. Hunter Biden, who was pardoned by his father, is now taking on his father.
The way in which they executed the withdrawal from Afghanistan, I think it was an obvious failure.
Ouch. Some harsh words from Hunter Biden about how his dad did his job. And it gets more candid or harsher. Hunter did not stop there. We're going to have more from that interview coming up. Plus, another batch of Epstein documents just dumped on the web. Just a short time ago, the Department of Justice released nearly 30,000 more pages. All the pages relate to and are from the prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein. We're going to tell you what was in some of those pages in moments. And 'tis the season for traveling. We're going to look at gas prices, and more than 122 million Americans are expected to hit the road this holiday season. But first, those 30,000 new pages. That's how many pages came out today. The Justice Department released from their Epstein file, the prosecution files. Those documents were shared on the Justice Department's X account. DOJ included this statement, quote, "Some of these documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims made against President Trump that were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. To be clear, the claims are unfounded and false, and if they had a shred of credibility, they certainly would have been weaponized against President Trump already," end quote. So, what's in today's released documents? Well, one email from an unidentified Manhattan federal prosecutor says Trump had flown on Epstein's private jet more times than previously reported. The email, which dates back to January 2020, says Trump flew on Epstein's jet 8 times between 1993 and 1996. Documents also show Manhattan federal prosecutors subpoenaed employment records from Mar-a-Lago back in 2021. The subpoena asked for records connected to the investigation into Ghislaine Maxwell. Former federal prosecutor Joseph Moreno joins me. And nice to see you, Joe. And big deal if someone was on an airplane 8 times, 10 times, 30 times, or 40 times, unless you did something wrong.
Greta, I know I've beaten this drum for months now, maybe even years with regards to the story, but this is why we don't release investigative files. They are explosive. They can be embarrassing. They can create all kinds of innuendo. But if someone's not charged, either because the innuendo or the evidence wasn't there, or there was some evidence, but there wasn't enough to prosecute and get a conviction beyond a reasonable doubt, well, then those investigators stay sealed.
This is a little different in terms of, I agree with you for the most part, but transparency becomes very important when this becomes sort of the talk of the internet. And so it's like, even if he didn't do anything wrong at all, it's sort of like, by omission, everyone's going to sort of fill that vacuum and think he did something wrong. So in some ways, I think that it's actually good to get it all out there. And I at first thought that this was a story that was not, didn't find the least bit interesting. Now I do.
Well, but where does it end? I mean, like, what happens if the next sensational story about some famous person is, either is not tried, as an investigation that doesn't go to trial, or it goes to trial and they don't get a conviction? Do we still release the files? Like, there's an outcry to see this stuff. Are we setting a precedent here?
But aren't a lot of people out there, Republicans, calling on the internet former President Clinton a pedophile? And they're calling President Trump, current president, a pedophile. And of course, with Trump's history with a young woman who was of age, naturally, it's just ammunition for more. And while he had bad behavior with Monica Lewinsky, it doesn't necessarily mean he had bad behavior here. And in fact, there's nothing so far to show it.
I'm second to none in my desire to prosecute wrongdoing, particularly pedophiles or crimes against women, crimes against children. But you don't use that word against someone who hasn't been convicted, right? That's just mudslinging. And so whether it's against Bill Clinton or whether against President Trump, politics don't matter. But the Justice Department providing this information to the public, now you have things like that, things like people calling names, things that calling people things that.
You don't think that would have happened if it weren't released? Because I think a lot of people, a lot of Trump's enemies had all sorts of crazy ideas about what he was doing, just terrible things. And I think to some extent releasing these documents, while it's sort of unflattering in some of the pictures, it's not a crime.
See, I'm a lawyer, right? I'm not a comms guy. But if I was advising the Trump administration, I would say you compare talk with action. There's a lot of talk from the left, particularly right now, right? What's not being revealed? What is Trump sitting on? What else is embarrassing, right? But the fact is, since 2006, which was Epstein's first guilty plea down in Florida, they have amassed all this evidence. How much action have we seen from Democrat White Houses, right? 8 years under Obama, 4 years under Joe Biden.
Zero. It was zero. Oh, no, it was zero.
No action. Who actually prosecuted Jeffrey Epstein? It was Trump's Justice Department in 2019. And then when Epstein killed himself, it was Trump's Justice Department in 2020 that prosecuted Ghislaine Maxwell. So I would say, look, It's one thing you want to create this sort of fiction that I'm hiding something. Well, you don't prosecute a case if you're trying to bury it. So there's talk in the action, and the action resides with this White House.
Okay, you said that Epstein's suicide, and I don't know whether he committed suicide. I don't think it was an accident or whether it was murder. And for some reason, and I'm not a conspiracist, but the idea that Dr. Baden, there just is no better pathologist and forensic pathologist, I think, in the country. I've worked with him for 25 years on cases at every network. And the fact that there were some glitches in the tape, that some of the surveillance tape on the cell, I mean, that just conveniently, I think it's fair to be really suspicious and wonder why can't we get a more definitive response out of what happened.
The ball was dropped. Yes, there was definitely problems with technology and there's problems with personnel in that prison, no doubt about it. And you know what? I think that's fully ripe to go into. It's within a statute of limitations, arguably, depending on what actually may have happened to him. I think it's our right to find out what anybody in the custody of the federal government, what happened to he or she. And so if it was a suicide, if it was something else, I think we deserve to know that. That's different than fishing around investigative files that go back to the 90s.
Well, one of the women from the 90s, I read, because I was thinking to myself, maybe a lot of women want this to go away. Well, apparently a lot of the women who were victims don't want to go this way. And I read over the weekend one woman who in 1996 made a complaint, I think she worked for Epstein, made a complaint about child pornography to the FBI. And I think there was some suggestion that nobody believed her until these files were released. And lo and behold, there is the complaint. There is her report in the FBI's files, in the Justice Department files. And the FBI did zero. And so she's vindicated.
I think things like that are important to shine a spotlight on. I think it shows that the system doesn't always work perfectly, and I think that's completely ripe to kind of delve into. But my takeaway from this is the only real good that can come from this is if it uncovers additional charges that can be brought against individuals. And the fact is, the vast majority of this is beyond the statute of limitations, even for child trafficking, which has no statute of limitations up to 2002. Anything before 2002 is still off the table. So I think, again, it's sensational. Maybe it will sate the appetite of people who are conspiracy theorists and just want to know more. But at the end of the day, my fear is this back and forth about what is and is not being revealed is just going to keep going. And people will never be completely satisfied.
All right, so that's the legal answer. What about the political answer? Like maybe somebody doesn't want to vote for someone who hangs around with creepy people or sits in a hot tub as President Clinton did in a hot tub with some woman that they blacked out, so naturally we assume it wasn't Hillary.
But we knew that already. We didn't need the Justice Department to tell us that, right? That's different between, I think, the journalists uncovering it or individuals revealing it versus the government telling us that. I don't think that it's the job of the FBI.
Well, look
at
a lot we're not being told. Look at the redaction on the screen. Those are pages that have been released. That's pretty. I mean, it's not as though the Justice Department is giving us a lot of stuff. They're not showing us a lot of stuff.
There's 5 categories of permitted redactions, right, in the Epstein Act that Congress just passed. And believe me, as a person who spent years at law firms, it's not as easy as one might think to go through very carefully through documents and mark potential redactions and then have a second level of supervisory review look at those transactions, look at those documents and those redactions, and then have to prepare a report to Congress about why that information was redacted. So I think all this talk about why this deadline of last Friday wasn't met, I think it's hard.
I think, they're getting that deadline. I mean, I thought the Justice Department was smart in releasing what they could, and now they're just keep releasing it.
It was never realistic.
Anyway, Joseph Moreno, thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Greta.
Professor Emeritus at Harvard Law School, Alan Dershowitz joins me. Nice to see you, sir.
Good. Can I correct something you said? You said that the woman in 2006 who said that
96, wasn't it? But anyway, go ahead.
Was vindicated. She wasn't vindicated. This is Maria. She is a complete and total nut. She believes the Holocaust didn't occur. She thinks Jews control the world. She thinks that all Jews are pedophiles. Of course the FBI didn't believe her in 1996. Nobody would believe her. She's a complete nutcase, except to CNN. CNN has her on every day. Never.
And apparently to me, because I took the bait too. Apparently to me as well.
Maria Farmer understand. Maria Farmer said she saw me once in Jeffrey Epstein's house before I ever met Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, she sees ghosts. This is a completely non-credible, nutcase that nobody should believe. Just because it's in the files doesn't make it true. I'm sure the FBI looked into it and said, oh my God, this woman making a claim, what she said about Jews, what she said about people, of course we're not going to believe her. This is pure McCarthyism. The same thing that happened when I was in college in the 1950s. Accusations, yeah, we'll make accusations. But the same women, the same, what do they call themselves, survivors, who claim that they want transparency for thee, but not for me. They don't want transparency about the women who themselves were procuring young girls for Jeffrey Epstein and getting paid $250. They don't want that kind of transparency. They don't want transparency about women who collected $50,000 having not met Jeffrey Epstein ever in their life. What we want is total transparency. You can't have just the accusations.
Why can't we get total transparency? I mean, I'm all for that too. I mean, because we've now gotten ourselves down. We've got ourselves down the road far enough in this Epstein thing. I mean, why? You know, what's the objection to really full transparency instead of all those blacked out pages?
Is that a lot of these women who call themselves survivors, who call themselves victims, a lot of them were perpetrators, perjurers, liars. Lawyers got rich over this. That doesn't suggest that Epstein didn't do terrible things. There are real victims, but the real victims suffer from the Sarah Ransoms of the world who claim she had videotapes of Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and Donald Trump having sex with children, Richard Branson, and then she has to admit she made the whole thing up. She doesn't have videotape. This is
But that's all the more reason for, I mean, what you say is for a complete transparency and not sort of cherry pick what you want to be transparent and not.
Partial transparency. That's what Joseph McCarthy did. He used to stand on the floor of the Senate and say, I have a list. I have a list of names. But he wouldn't give any information about the accusers. He wouldn't give the people who are accused the opportunity to defend themselves. This is bipartisan McCarthyism. Why? Because no congressman, senator, and except for you and a few other people, no member of the media is prepared to get up and say, I doubt the words of these accusers. I doubt the words of these victims. I doubt the words of these survivors, because they'll be called.
But okay, you and I mean, you know, there's nothing. I mean, there's nothing I want more than to get it right. But I mean, it's so easy to get it wrong. I mean, you're telling me that I got it wrong about this woman. I mean, how do I know that? You know, unless I have full transparency. How do I learn that? Except for I'm lucky enough to have booked you.
Look, I know more about this case probably than any person around. I've been investigating this case since I became Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer in the 2006 or something like that. And what he did was terrible. But what many of these women did was terrible. Many of these women, 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, 23-year-olds, were making $250 a shot for bringing 14-year-olds to Jeffrey Epstein for sex. Let's prosecute them. They're within the statute of limitations. Just because you're a woman doesn't mean you're not a pimp, doesn't mean doesn't mean you're not a procurer. We cannot be protecting these people. They are guilty.
I'm not in favor of protecting anybody, which is why I go back to let's have full transparency instead of having all these blacked out pages. Because we don't have transparency unless we have full transparency, because people take things and run with it.
Lawyers who went to these women and said, didn't you have sex with Epstein? If you did, you can collect $50,000 and I'll get $20,000 of it. There are a lot of complicit lawyers here too.
Well, who did that? I mean, that's very bad too. I mean, who are these lawyers?
I can tell you, I can give you names of lawyers. I can tell you who they are. There's a whole group of lawyers who have encouraged these women to come forward with false stories. Sarah Ransom is somebody who created a whole industry around herself, and there are others as well. I can give you lists of names of people, lawyers and people who've come forward with these false stories. Now, let's, for example, look at the letter that Epstein apparently wrote to Nasser. Has anybody checked his handwriting? I actually checked his signature. It doesn't look like his signature. This doesn't seem like a valid letter. Why would Jeffrey Epstein write a letter in advance of committing suicide that he had every reason to believe the authorities would open and look at and prevent him from committing suicide. It's very suspicious. So Donald Trump is right when he says, look at these disclosures. We're disclosing, but look at them with a critical eye and don't.
Well, that also, with also though, in addition to looking at the disclosures, we've got to have it all. I mean, it's like, just having a little piece of it is not a disclosure.
And then when you disclose everything, then we can look at every piece of evidence. We can see whether they're valid. We can do investigations into the backgrounds of some of these accusers and find out whether they falsely accused other people. That's become an industry, accusing people. That's McCarthyism. This is modern day McCarthyism. Look, there was really communism, and it was a terrible thing when the Soviet Union was trying to take over the world. And so Joseph McCarthy had a real target. And there really is sexual abuse, and Jeffrey Epstein was a terrible sexual abuser. But that doesn't mean you can use that as an excuse to go after totally innocent people. And that's what McCarthyism did. And that's what this form of new McCarthyism is doing. Where's this?
I mean, but I guess that, I don't know where everybody's, I don't even know if we're at that stage. I mean, everyone's saying a lot of really awful things about everybody at this point. But the problem is that we have no universe of facts from which to make reasonable opinions and determine facts when we only get half the material is blacked out.
Where is where is anybody looking into this from an objective point of view? The same thing happened with McCarthyism. You couldn't get a liberal, you couldn't get a conservative, you couldn't get the ACLU, you couldn't get anybody because they'd be called communist sympathizers, commie simps. The same thing is true today. If you dare to suggest that some of these alleged victims and survivors are phonies and they're making up stories for their own, lining their own pocket, you're called a victim shamer and you're called an Epstein supporter. Well, I'm prepared to take that on. Where's the ACLU? They're supposed to defend civil liberties. The ACLU is supposed to say that if you're accused, you have a Sixth Amendment right to defend yourself. If you're accused, you have a right to know the name of your accused. Where are they? Where are the liberals in the Senate and the House? They are ashamed. They're afraid. They have no courage. They won't stand up to this new form of McCarthyism. In 10 years, this will go down in history as the second worst form of McCarthyism in our nation's history. The first was Joseph McCarthy himself, and the second is this new Epstein McCarthyism. Out there, if you want to win a Pulitzer Prize, go and do this. Do the investigation. Nobody else is doing it.
And we go back to where I started, is that even knowing him or being on a plane with him doesn't mean you've done anything wrong, which is where this is. This is so blown up. Knowing Jeffrey Epstein is not a crime.
Well, that was the same thing with McCarthyism. If you were in a class with a communist, if you went to a party with a communist, if you dated a communist, you must be a communist and you lose your job. The first thing about McCarthyism was guilt by association. The second was guilt by accusation. The third was going after the lawyers, which of course they've done as well. So every element of the old McCarthyism is now in the new Epstein McCarthyism. History will take real concerns about what's going on in this country today, and terrible precedents are being established. Hard cases make bad law, and bad people make bad precedents, which are ultimately applied to good people. And that's what's happening today.
And as full disclosure, I know a lot about McCarthyism, but we'll leave that for another day. Professor Alan Dershowitz, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Coming up, at this year's Christmas dinner in the Biden home, don't sit former President Biden next to his son, Hunter. Hunter just made a shocking admission on tape. That when the record continues.
Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country.
Before Charlie Kirk died, he issued a stark warning of terrifying dangers ahead in a new book, Pagan Threat, authored by Pastor Lucas Miles. Charlie said Pagan Threat could save America and that you must read it. Get Pagan Threat free with Newsmax's special offer. Plus, get Dick Morse's new book, The Real Charlie Kirk. 2 great books with our free offer today.
Nearly home. Whodunit?
We're looking for a house closer to everything, but we don't know where to start.
Find it with Realtor.com. With Real Commute, it's easy to find a home closer to what's ever close to your heart. Do y'all recycle? Realtor.com.
Total Beets Ultimate Heart Health is the newest innovation from America's best-selling Beets brand. Ultimate Heart Health contains a key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support, plus CoQ10 for even better heart health. Find Total Beets Ultimate Heart Health at Walmart today.
Talk is cheap when it comes to saving our country. We're not just any cell phone service provider. We're Patriot Mobile. It's not enough to simply talk about values. We live them. Defending life, protecting our First and Second Amendments, and celebrating our military and first responder heroes. We're boots on the ground making a difference. We're America's only Christian conservative wireless provider with nationwide coverage on all 3 major networks and 100% U.S.-based customer service. Join Patriot Mobile today and make an impact every time you use your cell phone.
How would you live your life differently if you knew it was only a matter of time before you went completely deaf and blind? I have Usher syndrome, a rare condition that's causing me to lose all of my vision and hearing at the same time. I'm a fighter, trying to hold on to what I still have. But I can't do it alone.
Since taking office, President Trump has been rapid fire with new policies and executive orders, and now the president has made an announcement about the future of the U.S. Navy. He also answered questions about Venezuela and Greenland.
I have approved a plan for the Navy to begin the construction of 2 brand new, very large, the largest we've ever built, battleships.
The United States seized 1.9 million barrels of oil on December 10th.
We're going to keep it. We're keeping it.
Where's it going? Are we going to sell it or put it in the strategic?
Maybe we'll
reserve?
sell it. Maybe we'll keep it. Maybe we'll use it in the strategic reserves. We're keeping it. Maduro?
What's your end game?
There's no answer. He can do whatever he wants. I mean, we have a massive armada formed, the biggest we've ever had, and by far the biggest we've ever had in South America. He could do whatever he wants. It's all right. Whatever he wants to do. If he wants to do something, if he plays tough, it'll be the last time he's ever able to play tough. We need Greenland for national protection. They have a very small population. And I don't know, they say Denmark, but Denmark has spent no money. They have no military protection. They say that Denmark was there 300 years ago or something with a boat. Well, we were there with boats too, I'm sure. So we'll have to work it all out.
In this first year of his second term, the president has literally turned Washington upside down. Makes you wonder what he has in mind for 2026. It begins in about 9 days. Former White House Chief of Staff in the first Trump administration, former Republican Congressman from North Carolina, Mark Meadows, joins me. Nice to see you, sir. And there's no doubt that the president has turned everything upside down. He's done things, he's broken glass, so to speak, making changes. What's your anticipation for 2026?
Well, it'll go even faster than the first 100 days did or this first year. I can tell you the president is not only laser focused on trying to get things done, but he's reminding the American people of what he did in the first term, but yet he's doing it much faster. And let me just go back to that Mar-a-Lago clip just a little bit, where he's introducing 2 new battleships. I need to bring everybody in. We were in the Oval Office many times where the president was talking about making sure that we had a naval fleet that was up to the standards and honestly up to the amount of money that we spend on defense. He takes a personal interest in this, so for him to announce it when he's already down in Mar-a-Lago getting ready for Christmas is just an anticipation of the fact that he works around the clock. We're going to see more ships made in America to make sure that we have peace through strength.
What seems to me during his first term, he's more conventional, more Washington, getting his feet wet. But I have the sense that during the 4 years when he's out of office, he thought to himself, I should have done it this way. And now we are seeing what he regretted having not done the first term.
Well, listen, there's 2 things that happen in Washington, D.C. Lots of talk, and the second is no action. And this president is not going to be there. You've covered it for decades. The president got to see it in the first term, and much of this he started to see as in 2019, 2020, towards the end of his first term, how a lot of members of Congress and bureaucrats were saying, we're making progress. but he didn't see any progress. This time, he is turning it upside down, going to make sure that not only we see progress, but that he is the most transformational president that we've seen in our lifetime, certainly, and perhaps through all the history of United States presidents.
Well, you say transformational. It's also he's the most transparent. I mean, he doesn't give any statement about what he's doing, like on the naval ships yesterday, without taking a bunch of questions afterwards. I mean, it is quite remarkable about how much, whether you like Trump or don't like Trump, is that the government works for us, and we need to know what the government's doing, and he certainly tells us.
Listen, no question is off limits, and we saw that from that, whether it's Greenland or Venezuela. And let me just tell you, what a lot of people like to hear is there would have been normally a diplomatic answer to what are you going to do with the oil from Venezuela. Well, he said what most Americans believe, just keep the oil. I mean, they used to traffic that oil, not just for their own benefit of their country, but back and forth to Iran and other sponsors of terror. And so keeping the oil, whether it goes in the strategic oil reserve or anything else, is welcome news to most Americans. And I can tell you, Maduro better get it right, because we're going to have the armada that will be able to address that in real terms.
What's going to happen with Greenland? I mean, I can't imagine, we're not going to, at least I don't think, go in and seize it, but we could certainly negotiate deals so that we could have a broader military presentation there. We can have, agreements with them where we protect them if there is a problem. But do you see Greenland become part of the United States? I do not.
Well, I don't see it becoming part of the United States, but obviously the president has been able to see well beyond the horizon on a number of fronts. But there are two ways that things get done. One is through direct foreign aid, and the other is through defense agreements. A strong military for the United States bodes well for a diplomatic solution where we actually have a military presence there, a joint agreement of sorts. And so I know that he is myopically focused on making sure that Greenland is an ally of ours and not of Russia or someone else. And I fully expect during this second term that he'll be able to accomplish much of what he set out.
Well, he's also turned upside down Denmark, in addition to everybody else, by what he has said about it. Former White House Chief of Staff and Congressman Mark Meadows, thank you, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you and all the ones that are tuned in right now. God bless.
Thank you. Well, he's back. The he is Hunter Biden. Yesterday, former President Joe Biden's son, Hunter, made an appearance on the podcast, The Sean Ryan Show. Former first son has done many interviews over the years, but this one is different. In this interview, he calls out his father's failures as president.
I don't even know if I'm a Democrat anymore. I don't know if I'm a part of any political, because it's just like, pox on all your houses, in my opinion. But not that you shouldn't engage in the political process. It's like, I'm just talking about the parties. We need a vibrant immigration, but we don't want immigrants that are coming here illegally, draining us of resources, and also and being prioritized above people that are actual literal heroes. I think one of the failures was the way in which they executed the withdrawal from Afghanistan. I think it was an obvious failure. I think 13 Marines are dead. I think that there was a better way to do it. And I think that, I can blame it on his generals. I can blame it on the people, the way in which we did it. But my dad always knew this also, is that the buck stops with him. I got, I don't know, $14, $15 million in debt that I have no idea that how I'm going to. I have, millions of dollars in debt that, nobody's riding to the rescue for Hunter Biden. My dad, entered the presidency as the poorest man to ever take the office, and he left the presidency, not poorest. I mean, which he's fine, but, we have no generational wealth.
Yikes. Well, this could make for a very awkward Christmas dinner. Coming up, President Trump has a gift for holiday travelers. Might you get one? Find out when the record continues.
A mesothelioma diagnosis is overwhelming, but you don't have to go through it alone. Our firm is exclusively dedicated to only serving mesothelioma victims and their families. With decades of success, our team of nurses and attorneys will fight for the compensation and care you deserve. We'll even come to you. This is our MesoCare promise. Call us now so you can focus on what matters most.
Call now and we'll come to you for a free consultation. Call 800-600-3850 or go to mesobook.com.
From the beginning, America has depended on the courage and resilience of those who serve in our armed forces. For 250 years, they've been there for us without fail, putting their lives on the line, defending our freedom, helping us become the nation we are today. At Wounded Warrior Project, our mission honors the past by building a better future for post-9/11 veterans, service members, and their families. Our life-changing programs and services help warriors improve their mental and physical health, access the VA benefits they've earned, and connect with their communities, their purpose, and each other. Warriors have given us their best. Join us in supporting them through the next 250 years of strength, resilience, and recovery. Visit woundedwarriorproject.org/USA250.
The Wall Street Journal said silver could be the trade of a decade.
Eric Sprott said $250 to $500 an ounce is entirely possible.
Gold recently surpassed its inflation-adjusted all-time high. Silver's inflation-adjusted all-time high is $209 an ounce.
And silver went up 1,300% from 1974 to 1980. Silver's got a lot of room to run.
Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 1-800-778-4156.
Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer nationwide. The only firm nationwide where you, the client, work directly with an owner. Home of the no-fee-for-life IRA. See how easy it is to protect your IRA with physical gold and silver.
Call now. 1-800-778-4156.
Get ready to deck the walls with 14 days of deals at Cabinets to Go. Now through December 31st, save up to 70% on kitchen cabinet collections. Plus, holiday deals on accents, accessories, and more. 14 days of deals. Cabinets to Go, designed to wow.
Hi, I'm Bob Webster. You know, in cold weather, I'll bet you every farmer, rancher, and homeowner in the country worries about their pipes freezing and breaking. Well, the Freeze Miser ends that worry. No batteries, no wires, just some amazing technology that lets it sense when the temperature of the water in the pipes drops to 37 degrees. Then it starts releasing exactly the right amount of water. Check it out at freezemiser.com or at your favorite nursery, garden center, hardware, or farm and ranch store. It's the Freeze Miser, and it works.
It's the Blue Compass RV annual Blue Tag clearance. Save over 40% on select new RVs during our largest sale of the year. Plus, every RV comes with a 1-year VIP membership to RV Complete, a $5,000 value. Visit us online or in store today.
Are you planning on flying this holiday season? Well, you might want to reconsider that plan and try driving. Why? Well, right now, gas is very cheap. According to AAA, national gas prices are at the lowest they've been in 4 years. Correspondent Christina Thompson is at Penn Station in Manhattan with the latest on travel. Christina?
Greta, that's right. We've been out here watching as there's standstill traffic, people trying to get out of the city using their cars, really, because this year we're seeing gas prices at an all-time low. According to White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, this is a Christmas present from the president. Gas prices right now averaging at $2.79 across the United States. Rapid Response 47 tweeting out that in 40 states it's actually lower. The average gas price is below $3 a gallon. In 28 states it's below $2.75. 13 states below $2.50. In one state it's $2.25. And get this, you can find gas in 12 states for lower than $2 in the $1 range. President Trump highlighting these low prices in his recent address to the nation.
Gasoline is now under $2.50 a gallon in much of the country. In some states, it, by the way, just hit $1.99 a gallon.
Check out this map from GasBuddy.com. It shows which states have the lowest gas prices right now. Good news if you live in the Midwest and you're driving home to loved ones or family members for Christmas, you right now have the lowest prices throughout the entire country. But we're also seeing regions like the Northeast, which typically have higher gas prices, also seeing prices around or below the $3 range, really only out in California and the West Coast are we seeing it above $3, closer to $4 still. Now, Greta, if people are driving home, and we know 110 million people are planning to travel between Christmas and New Year's, the best times to travel, according to AAA, to beat the traffic on the roads is to actually leave on the holidays themselves. So traveling on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, or New Year's Day, if you can swing it, that'll help you beat the traffic. Greta.
Christina Thompson, thank you. And as we prepare to ring in the new year, we also need to prepare for possible terrorism. A new Homeland Security assessment is warning of possible threats on New Year's Eve. Senior correspondent John Huddy has the latest. John?
Well, Greta, that's right. The FBI and Homeland Security are warning that domestic terrorists and lone wolf attackers are really the two most persistent threats, though the agency said there is no specific threat right now. However, these two groups, we've heard about lone wolf attackers, domestic terrorism. They're keeping a very close eye on both groups. Still, law enforcement agencies are also being told to watch out for potential attacks, in particular, vehicle ramming attacks. Basically, like we saw January 1st in New Orleans this year when 42-year-old Shamsud Din Jabbar rammed his pickup truck, as you may recall, into a group of people at right around 3:15 in the morning along Bourbon Street, plowing through the crowd and then exchanging gunfire with police before police there ultimately shot and killed him. And as we know, an ISIS flag was found in the truck he was driving, and Jabbar had posted videos pledging allegiance to ISIS in the preceding hours. And these type of attacks we've seen in the U.S. and worldwide. We've seen them in Germany as well, and this is something we've seen in the Middle East, Palestinians attacking Israelis in this form of terrorism. Most recently, though, last week, 4 people were arrested for allegedly plotting a New Year's Eve terror attack in Los Angeles, and a 5th person was arrested for allegedly planning an attack once again to carry out in New Orleans as well. Now, the FBI, Greta, was tracking the suspects that were described as being part of a far-left pro-Palestinian and anti-U.S. government group called the Turtle Island Liberation Front, and even took video, this surveillance video from overhead, showing them basically setting up to test their improvised explosive devices, or what's referred to as IEDs, out in the desert outside of L.A. before FBI SWAT teams moved in and ultimately arrested them. Listen here.
The subject arrested envisioned planting backpacks with improvised explosive devices to be detonated at multiple locations in Southern California, targeting U.S. companies. These bombs were to blow up at the same time on midnight this New Year's Eve.
So that really gives you the type of domestic terror groups that the feds, the FBI, Homeland Security are really looking at. And he also said that the suspects plan to fill backpacks with pipe bombs and detonate them remotely using basically burner phones. The threats are not only here in the United States. Paris, Tokyo, Belgrade have canceled their New Year's Eve celebrations over safety concerns. And Australia, of course, is at a heightened security level after the Bondi Beach terror attack there. Back here in the U.S., though, shifting again attention to New Orleans, Greta, officials there are requesting that the city's New Year's Eve designation is elevated from what's called a Sear 3 event to either a Sear 1 or Sear 2 event in order to basically bring in additional federal resources. The city is also hosting the Sugar Bowl the night of January 1st. Greta, back to you.
John Huddy, thank you. Coming up, 2 big prescription drug announcements. That when the record continues.
I am a coach and an alum of Girls on the Run. Kids today carry a lot of stress, from school pressure to social isolation to overuse of devices. We create a space where girls can connect, build confidence, and learn skills like managing emotions, setting goals, and speaking up. Each child's experience is different, and families need support. I'm proud to be part of a comprehensive solution to youth mental health. Get involved today at EmpowerOurFutureCoalition.com.
Think of all the places that could expose you to identity theft. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points per second and quickly alerts you if we detect any suspicious activity, like changes to your investment accounts, home title, or new loans in your name. all through text, phone, email, or the LifeLock app. Get the alerts that could make all the difference. LifeLock, for the threats you can't control.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 91 years of age, here with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now, both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you.
It really is incredible.
Yeah, try it. You will be surprised. Order now. You'll be glad you did.
The poverty is unimaginable. There are people who are struggling.
This is where she washes the dishes.
If you're ever going to allow your Christian faith to rise and to do something for God's chosen people, now is the time.
This is the home of Galina. She's 96 years old.
This is what she had to eat for today.
She has one pot with water and wheat.
My father was killed by the Nazis, and I was an orphan. I didn't know about God. But now, in the cold, hungry nights, I pray for food to the God I've never known. There are good people that love you.
You see the tears. Scripture says joy can come in the morning, and you can be the reason.
If you will bless these hurting children of Israel, you will receive God's blessing in return. Your urgent gift today of $25 will help rush a survival food box filled with life-saving essentials. If you call right now, your gift's impact will be doubled to help save lives. Call, scan, or go online now.
I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, I don't know how much longer she could have waited for us to come.
I can't even grow my food anymore. What will happen to me? I'm doomed to starve.
Tens of thousands of elderly Holocaust survivors in the former Soviet Union are living in extreme poverty, hungry, and forgotten. But through the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, we can bring them hope.
It's my favorite food. May you be blessed.
You say to them, we see you and we're here to help.
If you call right now, your gift's impact will be doubled to help save lives.
Yesterday, the FDA approved a weight loss pill. Yes, a pill, not an injection. It's the first daily oral medication to treat obesity. This is the pill version of Wegovy. Now, the company behind it, Novo Nordisk, says it expects the pill to be widely available in January. On an agreement with the Trump administration that was announced in November, Novo Nordisk says the pill will cost $149 per month. Now, compare that to the injectable Wegovy. That costs more than $1,000 before insurance or discounts. Meanwhile, beginning January 1st, pharmaceutical company Bristol-Myers Squibb will provide the medicine Eliquis at no charge to Medicaid recipients. What condition does Eliquis treat? Cardiologist Dr. Chauncey Crandall joins me. Nice to see you, sir. And tell me, who needs Eliquis? What kind of conditions?
Well, Greta, the bottom line is people that have underlying arrhythmia disorder called atrial fibrillation really need Eliquis. Other people are those that have blood clots to the lung. But atrial fibrillation is the one that we're most worried about because there's a high incidence of that in the United States. And the outcome can be quite serious. This condition can give you a stroke. So this is the reason why the government is giving Eliquis at a discounted rate or free to Medicaid patients because these people need the drug and the outcome is quite severe if they're not on the blood thinner and they have a stroke. And the cost of care for these people is dramatic if they have an underlying stroke.
Yeah, I was reading something like $800 or $900 a month it could be for this medicine. You say that we have a lot of instances of AFib here. Is it, more than other countries? And is it just because we're tracking it more? Or is it something new? Or does it have to do with weight? What is that?
Well, I think there are more issues with atrial fibrillation in countries that have poor health. Obesity is one of them. And other inflammatory like foods can give you atrial fibrillation, but we're not the best country in the world for healthcare, so and also health. So this drug is needed, and people that are on Medicaid are really isolated. They don't have enough money to pay for their medicines. So if we can give this medication to them for free, we can prevent strokes in them and lower the cost of overall medical care.
Is Eliquis, in terms of who gets prescribed it more often, is it older people who might be on Medicare? Because that's one of the concerns I have, is that this is for, this is an important drug, and people who get Medicaid will get it free, but there are a lot of people on Medicare who don't have the extra drug provision, and they will still have to pay unless they get some sort of subsidy.
Well, Greta, you're correct. Many of my patients are older and they cannot afford this medicine. They are on Medicare. Medicaid are for the poor at the other end of the extreme, younger people, usually those that don't have really, decent incomes. But the people at the other end, the older patients, they need help too, so the government needs to kick in with them, because the elderly, when they have strokes, it's serious business and it costs the government a lot of money. If you had 100,000 people in the population with atrial fibrillation, the outcome of 100,000 strokes is over $3 billion. So if we can reduce that, we can save the government a lot of money and the taxpayers as well.
One of the is the sort of competitor Eliquis. Eliquis is relatively new in the last 15 years or so, but would that be Coumadin, which is people hated that drug because you have to constantly have your blood tested. But does that drug even compare to Eliquis in terms of how successful it is?
Coumadin was a very labor-intense drug to manage. You had to come in every month to get a blood test. Eliquis, you don't need to monitor drug levels. It's a very easy drug. It's a much safer drug than Coumadin. Less strokes are seen on this, less bleeding problems. So many of my patients are on it. I really haven't had a problem under good supervision. It's a great medicine to be on if you need it. So the bottom line is this is good news for all of us, that the medication is being provided at a lower cost.
And I suppose that this obesity drug that I wrote about, this is a pill, not an injection, and it's going to be a lot cheaper, $149. You're a cardiologist, and cardiologists always tell people to lose weight. I suppose this also is going to be an asset to your practice and cardiologist practice around the country.
Well, obesity is a big problem, and again, obesity often hits the poor, and these are the ones that really need free medicines or medicines at a lower cost. So this will improve the health of the United States in a big way, and it will lower the cost of complications of obesity and other diseases like atrial fibrillation. So I think this is smart medicine. It's good medicine. Government intervention, I'm not a big proponent of that. But for this, I think they're doing the right thing, and we're moving in the correct direction.
Doctor, thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Greta. Merry Christmas.
And a sad announcement from former Nebraska U.S. Senator Ben Sasse, the 53-year-old, posting in part, quote, "Last week I was diagnosed with metastasized stage 4 pancreatic cancer and I'm going to die. Advanced pancreatic is nasty stuff. It is a death sentence. But I already had a death sentence before last week, too. We all do." End quote. In 2014, Sasse was elected to the United States Senate. In 2020, he won re-election. In January of 2023, he left the Senate to become the president of the University of Florida. In July of 2024, he left that post after his wife was diagnosed with epilepsy. He has continued to teach at the university. Sasse and his wife have 3 children. By the way, there are absolutely incredible things happening in cancer treatment, so let's hope he beats the odds. Coming up, our outrage of the day. This is going to set your hair on fire. That when the record continues.
Derriere, caboose, booty, badunkadunk. No matter what you call it, if you have hemorrhoids, your tushy is no laughing matter. So don't use a cream that treats your rear end like a joke. Get serious relief with Recticare Advanced Hemorrhoidal Cream. Recticare Advanced is seriously effective with 2 powerful medicines for rapid dual-action relief, soothing the uncomfortable swelling, itching, and pain of your hemorrhoids. For serious hemorrhoid relief for your buns, get Recticare Advanced.
Let's be honest, getting insurance has been on your to-do list, along with assembling whatever that's supposed to be, or teaching your kid to
slow down, honey.
Drive. Fortunately, the Zebra searches over 100 insurance companies to find you savings no one else can. Don't wait. Visit thezebra.com, compare prices, and get insurance today. You can save up to $400 per year on car insurance.
Trevor!
Go to thezebra.com today.
Robert trusts Prevagen for his brain, and this is his story.
I am Robert Strickler. I've been involved in communications and the media for 45 years. I've been taking Prevagen for at least 8 years. I found out that I benefited from it. It gave me more confidence, and I enthusiastically recommend Prevagen. It has helped me an awful lot.
Prevagen has been the #1 selling brain supplement nationwide for over 10 years.
I'm Guy Fieri, and I'm asking for your help in supporting the Tunnel to Towers Foundation as it continues to pay off the mortgages for fallen first responders and Golden Star families who have died in the line of duty and left behind young children. Not only that, but they are also building mortgage-free smart homes for catastrophically injured service members and have recently committed to eradicating homelessness amongst our veterans. We ask you to join us on our mission to do good. Go to T2T.org and donate today.
Samaritan's Purse is ready to show the love of Christ to people in the most difficult circumstances. But we can't go without you. With your support, we can build homes, heal hearts, provide critical relief, and bring hope to a world in need. Donate now at SamaritansPurse.org. Let's get to work in Jesus' name.
Hey guys, Viagra is not your only option. Rose Sparks act fast and stay active longer. They aren't pills. Sparks dissolve under your tongue to reach your bloodstream for speedy results. Connect with a provider at ro.co/sparks.
This isn't your average pill. This is Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks is a fast-acting solution because it dissolves under your tongue.
Rose Sparks.
Guys, get started today.
Connect with a provider to find out if Rose Sparks are right for you.
It's time for the outrage of the day. Okay, this one's really going to make you sick. Government waste, giving money, your money, to dead people. An independent watchdog for the HHS released a report that found Medicaid programs paid more than $200 million to dead people. How does this happen, more than $200 million to dead people? Well, the money was sent to healthcare providers between 2021 and 2022 for the dead people. An official with the Office of Audit Services told the Associated Press these kinds of improper payments are, quote, not unique to one state, and the issue continues to be persistent, end quote. In other words, all the states are in on this, taking your tax dollars to give to dead people. Medicaid dollars are tax dollars managed by the states, but obviously mismanaged by the states. Terrible, isn't it? Don't worry, the big, beautiful bill mandates more audits to try to stop this, but don't count on getting back the millions already paid to the dead people. That money is history. Meanwhile, some good news for the economy. According to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, the United States economy grew by 4.3% in the third quarter. This marks the fastest growth rate in 2 years. President Trump taking it to social to celebrate the data, writing, quote, Quarter 3 GDP came in at 4.3%, blowing past expectations of 3.2%. 60 of 61 Bloomberg economists got it wrong, but Trump and some other geniuses got it right. The success is due to good government and tariffs. Consumer spending is strong. Net exports are way up. Imports and trade deficits are way down. And there is no inflation because of my tax bill and tariffs. Investment is setting records. The Trump economic golden age is full steam ahead. You haven't seen anything yet, end quote. Coming up, a Christmas production at doggy daycare. Yes, you heard that right. You're going to see this next.
You know, folks, I thank God for my wonderful wife, my kids, my country, the greatest nation ever. And Americans like you who believe in the truth, the Chris Salcedo Show will never stop fighting for you.
The Chris Salcedo Show, for the news you need to know.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, the 91-year-old formulator of Immuno 150, an incredible nutritional supplement. There's nothing like it. Now, Immuno 150 is different because it contains 70 plant-derived minerals and 80 other nutrients. Dr. Linus Pauling, known for vitamin C, was instrumental in convincing me to get into the mineral business in 1983. He said the world is sick due to a lack of minerals in topsoil. He said the body needs 60 minerals, but the average food and supplement has no more than 12. That's the reason for Immuno 150. Since its inception, it's had a powerful impact on the lives of thousands of people who could not get any help from various supplements they took or their doctor. Now, I suggest you try Immuno 150 to see what 70 minerals, CoQ10, and 80 nutrients can do for you. Look at the videos on our website. Millions have. And consider placing an order for Immuno 150 online or call our toll-free number. I know you'll be glad you did.
President Trump delivered on his promise to put America first by securing our border, unleashing American energy, and providing the largest tax cut in American history. Now Trump has delivered again by rescheduling cannabis, which was classified as more dangerous than fentanyl. Trump's action will destroy the cartel's illicit black market, expand medical research, and help American seniors and veterans safely receive care, support over 400,000 jobs, and create billions of dollars in economic growth. Thank President Trump for putting America first.
Invest in Ukraine now. Ukraine is rebuilding, innovating, and shaping the future. Because Ukraine is the potential. Kyivstar is Ukraine's leading digital operator. Invests in Ukraine's connectivity, entertainment, ride-hailing, healthcare, and innovation. It's time to think opportunity. It's time to think Ukraine now.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
Muscle cramps were keeping me up at night, so then I tried Slowmag, the magnesium plus calcium supplement that helps relax tense muscles so I can rest comfortably. And Slowmag tablets have a slow-release formula that's gentle on my stomach. That's why I use Slowmag.
It's the Blue Compass RV annual Blue Tag clearance. Save over 40% on select new RVs during our largest sale of the year. Plus, every RV comes with a 1-year VIP membership to RV Complete, a $5,000 value. Visit us online or in store today.
This holiday season, even dogs are getting into the Christmas spirit. One doggy daycare dressed the pups up as characters in a nativity scene. The dogs starred in the roles of Jesus, Mary, Joseph, and even the king. The daycare says it was not exactly a silent night with these actors, but sure is cute. The Chris Salcedo Show is up next. Have a great evening.